Ambassador James Fletcher stood in the grand chamber of Concordia Prime, watching rainbow light dance across alien faces. 200 years of human service to the Galactic Council had led to this moment. Behind him stood Admiral Richard Kowalski and Ambassador Margaret Hayes, both waiting to see if their petition would finally be accepted. James cleared his throat and began speaking to the 7 ancient species seated before him. Honored Council members, humanity has served faithfully for 2 centuries. We have shared our technology and improved your travel systems by 30%. We have sent our soldiers to keep peace in 17 conflicts. We have given food and medicine to 42 colonies that were struggling. Today, we ask for what we have earned. We request full membership with equal votes on this council. Holographic images floated beside him, showing proof of everything humanity had done. The numbers were clear. The contributions were undeniable. Then Elder Vexter started laughing. The massive crystalline alien's body shifted from blue to purple as harsh sounds echoed through the chamber. 200 years, he rumbled, his voice filled with mockery. My people have sat on this council for 14,000 years. Your 200 years is nothing. It is less than a single breath. Margaret stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Elder Vexter, we believe contribution matters more than time. Our achievements speak for. Achievements? Speaker Thalen of the Zorathians interrupted. Her 4 eyes glittered with amusement. You speak of enthusiasm. Of short-lived creatures running around trying to matter before they die. You live such brief lives. How can you possibly understand politics that span millennia? Soft laughter spread through the chamber. James noticed that even Arbiter Quellen, who had sponsored humanity's junior membership, was shaking his head with a condescending smile. Admiral Kowalski's fists clenched at his sides. James could feel the anger radiating from his military liaison, but Richard remained silent. They had practiced for this. They had prepared for disrespect. Quellen raised one of his 6 hands. Perhaps we can find middle ground. Let us extend your junior membership for another 500 years. We will review your progress periodically. This is very generous. 500 years. Most humans in the room would not live to see 50 more. James looked at each council member carefully. He saw it clearly on every face. Smugness. Superiority. Amusement at the humans who dared to think themselves worthy. Not one showed respect. Not one acknowledged what humanity had truly given. Margaret touched his arm gently. Her eyes asked the silent question. James nodded once. Honored Council, James said, and his quiet voice cut through the murmuring. Humanity thanks you for hearing our petition. However, we must withdraw our request. The chamber went completely silent. Furthermore, James continued, standing taller, humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will leave immediately. We will no longer serve as junior members. We will no longer provide peacekeepers. We will no longer contribute to council programs. Vexter's body flashed bright red with shock. You cannot mean this. You would leave the galaxy's greatest governing body because your feelings are hurt. Not hurt feelings, Elder Vexter, Margaret replied calmly. Simply recognition that this partnership does not benefit humanity. We wish the council success in everything you do. James touched his wrist device. Ambassador Fletcher to transport ship. Prepare for immediate departure. You will return, Speaker Thalen called out as the humans turned toward the exit. Within 1 year, you will come back begging. Your people cannot survive without the Council's protection and resources. James stopped at the massive doorway. He turned back one final time, his face showing neither anger nor sadness. Only certainty. Perhaps you are correct, Speaker Thalen. Or perhaps the Council will discover exactly what humanity has been doing all these years. What we have been providing while you were not paying attention. He gave one respectful nod. Goodbye. The great doors sealed shut behind them with a boom that echoed through the corridors. Well, we did it, Admiral Kowalski said, finally releasing his tension. Think they will figure it out. Margaret smiled, but there was no happiness in it. Eventually. The question is how long it will take. And how badly it will hurt them, added Dr. Elizabeth Moore, their science advisor. We manufacture 40% of their medical equipment. We improved their farming by 60%. We maintain their entire navigation network. They will learn, James said quietly. It will be the hard way. But they will learn. Through the sealed doors behind them, they could hear the council already discussing other matters. The human departure was clearly not important to them. That would change. The human delegation boarded their ship and left Concordia Prime. Within hours, the message reached every human colony and research station across Council space. Begin withdrawal. We are coming home. 3 months had passed since Ambassador James Fletcher walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. Now, across hundreds of worlds, humanity was packing up and going home. On the trading station of Velka Prime, Captain Thomas Wright supervised the loading of the last human cargo ships. Alien merchants watched nervously as containers disappeared into human vessels. "You are really leaving?" asked a Torvian trader who had worked with Thomas for 15 years. "Just like that?" Thomas nodded slowly. "Just like that." The council made their position clear. "We are not wanted as equals, so we are not staying." "But who will transport goods through the dangerous zones? Human ships are the only ones fast enough and brave enough." Thomas shrugged. "That is not our problem anymore." His ship lifted off, leaving the trading station quieter than it had been in decades. On the medical station orbiting Kalish Prime, Dr. Elizabeth Moore walked through her laboratory one final time. She had spent 12 years here, working beside alien scientists, teaching them human medical techniques. Her Kalish assistant, a young researcher named Kelvin, followed her sadly. "Dr. Moore, please reconsider. Your work on cellular regeneration is only half complete. We need you." Elizabeth stopped and turned to face him. "Kelvin, you are a brilliant scientist. I have taught you everything I know. But I cannot stay where my people are not respected. I am sorry." She looked at the sophisticated medical equipment filling the lab. Most of it had been manufactured by humans. "You should know that replacement parts for these machines will be difficult to find now. Human factories supplied most of them. Perhaps the council can create new suppliers." Kelvin's face fell as he realized what that meant. The best medical facility in this sector would soon struggle to function. On the border between KRYNN and Zarathian space, Commander Robert Harrison gathered his peacekeeping forces. For 8 years, human soldiers had stood between two species that hated each other. They had prevented 17 different battles from erupting into full war. "Sir, the KRYNN commander is asking when our replacement forces will arrive," reported Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell. Robert checked his datapad. "Tell him no replacement forces are coming. The council did not request them. We leave in 2 hours." "But sir, without us here." "Without us here, the KRYNN and Zarathians will have to solve their own problems. Or not. Either way, it is no longer our responsibility." As the human ships departed, both alien forces watched them go. Within the week, the first shots were fired across that border. Within a month, it would be a full war. On Feloria, a peaceful agricultural world, farmers noticed that human supply ships had stopped arriving. The vaccines that protected their livestock from plague came from human pharmaceutical companies. The seeds that doubled their crop yields were human-engineered. The irrigation systems that made their desert planet bloom were maintained by human technicians. The Felorian agricultural minister sent increasingly desperate messages to the council. "We need the humans to return immediately. Without their supplies, we will face famine within 6 months." The council's response was cold. "Find alternative suppliers. Humanity has chosen to be difficult. We will not beg them to return." But alternative suppliers did not exist. Humans had filled so many small gaps that no one had noticed until they were gone. At council headquarters, Speaker Thalen reviewed reports with growing irritation. "This is absurd. A few minor inconveniences and everyone is panicking. We survived for thousands of years before humans joined us." Arbiter Quellen looked worried as he read his datapad. "Speaker, these are not minor issues. The Central Trade Logistics Network is operating at 60% efficiency. Medical supplies are running short on 14 worlds. 3 border conflicts have erupted without peacekeepers. And our own station maintenance crews are reporting critical system failures." "What failures?" Thalen demanded. "Life support calibration, navigation system updates, communications relay maintenance." Apparently, human technicians had been handling most of this work because they volunteered to do it. They said our people were too busy with important matters. Thalen waved a dismissive hand. "Hire new technicians. This is a temporary problem." But it was not temporary. Every day brought new reports of systems failing, shortages appearing, conflicts erupting. The galaxy had run smoothly for so long that no one remembered all the small things that made it work. And humans had been doing most of those small things. Elder Vexter called for an emergency council session 3 months after humanity's departure. "We should send envoys to negotiate their return." Clearly, they did not understand the honor we were offering them. No, Thalen said firmly. We will not show weakness. Let them see what life is like without the Council's prestige. They will come back on their own, begging for even junior status. But humanity did not come back. Their colonies were reorganizing, their trade networks were redirecting, and their ships were staying in human space. And with each passing week, the cracks in the Galactic Council grew wider. 1 year had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. What had started as minor inconveniences had become major crises across Council space. The war between KRYNN and Zarathian forces had exploded into something terrible. Without human peacekeepers standing between them, old hatreds had reignited. 17 border stations had been destroyed. Thousands were dead. Refugee ships fled the combat zones, overwhelming nearby systems that had no room for them. Council military forces tried to intervene, but they were designed for defense, not peacekeeping. They did not have the training humans possessed for de-escalation and negotiation. Every attempt to stop the fighting only made both sides angrier. On Feloria, the plague had arrived exactly as predicted. Without human vaccines, the livestock began dying in massive numbers. Crops failed without the human-engineered seeds and irrigation systems. The Felorian government declared a state of emergency and sent desperate pleas to the council. We need food shipments immediately, the Felorian prime minister begged during a council session. Our people are starving. Children are dying. Elder Vexter shifted uncomfortably in his seat. We are working to redirect supplies from other systems. That will take months. We need help now. The humans could be here in weeks if you would just ask them. The council does not beg, Vexter stated firmly, though his voice lacked its usual certainty. But the Felorian crisis was only one problem among dozens. The Great Navigation Network, which allowed ships to travel safely through dangerous space, had collapsed. It had been built by 7 species working together over centuries, but human technicians had been the ones actually maintaining it for the past 100 years. No one else had learned how. Ships were getting lost. Trade routes that had been safe for millennia were now perilous. 3 vessels had disappeared completely in the past month. Commerce slowed to a crawl as captains refused to risk the journey. The Kalish medical facilities were failing. Dr. Moore had been right. The sophisticated equipment was breaking down, and replacement parts did not exist. Hospitals that had saved millions of lives were closing wings. Patients were dying from treatable conditions because the machines no longer worked. On the council's central station, systems were failing daily. Life support would fluctuate randomly. Communications would cut out for hours. Navigation systems displayed incorrect information. The station's director, a Quellan named Theron, reviewed the maintenance logs in disbelief. These repairs were all marked as completed by human crews, he told Speaker Thalen. They had been volunteering their off-duty hours to keep our systems running. They never asked for payment. They just did it because they said it needed doing. Thalen felt something she had not experienced in her long life. Doubt. How many systems? Nearly 40% of our critical infrastructure. They fixed things so quietly that our own people never noticed the problems existed. The council's economy was collapsing too. Human markets had been absorbing huge quantities of alien goods. Human manufacturers had been supplying countless products across the galaxy. When those markets closed and those suppliers stopped producing, the economic impact rippled through every system. Unemployment rose. Businesses closed. Even wealthy worlds were feeling the pressure. Ambassador James Fletcher received another message from the council. It was the 5th one this month. Each time, they disguised their desperation as opportunity. The council graciously offers humanity a chance to prove their worth by assisting with the current Feloria crisis. James read the message to Admiral Kowalski and Margaret Hayes. They still will not admit they need us. They are still offering us chances to prove ourselves. What did you respond? Margaret asked. I thanked them for thinking of humanity and politely declined. I wished them success in resolving their challenges. Kowalski laughed bitterly. They must be furious. Actually, James said, I think they are starting to understand. Look at this. He displayed another message, this one from Arbiter Quellan. It was personal, not official. He apologizes. He says he did not realize how much humans contributed. He asks if there is any way to restart discussions. What did you tell him? Margaret asked. The truth. That the council had their chance. That respect cannot be demanded or bought. It must be given freely. And that humanity will not return to a relationship built on disrespect. Across the galaxy, Other junior species watched humanity's independence with fascination. If humans could survive outside the council, perhaps they could too. Whispers of withdrawal spread through the younger species. The council was not just losing humans. They were losing their authority. In the council chambers, Elder Vexter faced the reality he had denied for months. We need to officially apologize. We need to ask them back as equals. Speaker Thalen finally nodded, her pride breaking under the weight of catastrophe. Draft the apology. Make it formal. Offer them full membership. The message was sent with all the ceremony and importance the council could manage. It arrived at human diplomatic headquarters within hours. James Fletcher read it carefully. Then he composed a reply that was only one sentence long. Apology acknowledged. Humanity wishes the council well. 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. What had been a crisis was now a complete disaster spreading like wildfire through council space. The economic collapse was no longer something that could be ignored or explained away. 7 council species had entered severe recession. Banks were failing. Currency values were dropping. Millions were losing their jobs and homes. Economists finally calculated the numbers they should have known before. Human markets had been purchasing nearly 30% of all goods produced in council space. Human manufacturing had supplied 40% of essential products across the galaxy. When those markets closed and those factories stopped shipping to alien worlds, the entire economic system had begun falling apart. On Earth, Ambassador James Fletcher met with the Human Leadership Council. They reviewed reports of secret communications from council members. We have received 4 to 7 private messages this month, James reported. Not from the council officially, but from individual species governments. They are trying to negotiate separate deals with us. President Catherine Wells frowned. What kind of deals? Trade agreements. Technology exchanges. Defense pacts. They are trying to get what they need without admitting the council was wrong. James pulled up a message. This one is from the Torvian Commerce Minister. He offers us favorable trade terms if we will resume shipping through their space. He promises not to tell the council. They are breaking apart, Admiral Kowalski said with satisfaction. The council cannot hold together when its members are making secret deals behind each other's backs. Margaret Hayes looked concerned. We are also receiving applications from other species. The Ventari and the Kellen want to join the new alliance we are building with former junior species. They want to leave the council entirely. The new alliance was humanity's real achievement. After leaving the council, humans had reached out to other junior species who had been treated poorly. Together, they had formed their own partnership based on mutual respect and fair trade. It was smaller than the council but growing quickly. And it was thriving. In council space, the refugee crisis had become overwhelming. The KRYN War had spread to neighboring systems. Billions were fleeing the combat zones. Refugee camps were overflowing. Disease was spreading. Food was running short. The council had no resources to help and no idea how to stop the fighting. The Felorian population had dropped by 20%. Starvation and plague had killed millions. The survivors were abandoning their world, seeking shelter anywhere they could find it. Other agricultural worlds faced similar disasters without human farming technology and supplies. The Great Navigation Network remained broken. Interstellar travel was dangerous and slow. Some regions were completely cut off. Pirates operated freely in areas that had been safe for thousands of years. The galaxy felt bigger and more dangerous than it had in living memory. On the council's central station, emergency power had become normal. Full power was now the exception. Water recycling systems worked only intermittently. Temperature control was unreliable. Council members who had lived in luxury for millennia were now dealing with cold chambers and limited food. Station Director Theron called another emergency meeting. We have 3 choices, he told the council members bluntly. We can ask humanity to return and give them true equality. We can continue as we are and watch everything collapse completely. Or we can dissolve the council entirely. Elder Vexter looked older than his 3,000 years. His crystalline body had lost its vibrant colors. I vote for the first option. We must bring humanity back as full equals. I agree, said several other voices. But Speaker Thalen raised her hand. If we do this, we admit we were wrong. We admit that a species barely 200 years old in council space was essential to our survival. How can we maintain authority after such an admission? What authority? Arbiter Quellen asked quietly. Half our members are making secret deals with humans. 3 species are talking about leaving entirely. We have no authority left to protect. We have only our pride, and pride is not worth dying for. The old guard of the council tried one last desperate move. Vextha's opponents, led by a hardline faction, proposed military action. We should seize human technology. Force them to provide what we need. They are only one species. We are many. The proposal was discussed for exactly 15 minutes before being abandoned. Admiral Kowalski had made sure every council member knew that human military forces were far more capable than anyone had realized. 2 centuries of quiet preparation had created a defensive network that would be extremely costly to attack. Finally, Speaker Thalen made her decision. I will travel to Earth personally. I will meet with their leaders face to face. I will offer them genuine partnership or admit that the council has failed. It was the first time a council speaker had visited Earth in the entire 200 years of human membership. The fact that it took a complete catastrophe to make it happen was not lost on anyone. Thalen's ship departed for Earth 3 days later. She traveled with only a small delegation, without ceremony or pride. The most powerful leader in the galaxy was going to humanity as a supplicant, though she would not admit it yet. On Earth, James Fletcher received notification of her arrival. Now, he said quietly, we will see if they truly understand what they lost. 3 years after humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, Speaker Thalen stood in a simple meeting room on Earth. No grand chamber. No rainbow lights. Just a plain room with a table and chairs. It was humbling in a way she had never experienced. Ambassador James Fletcher entered with President Catherine Wells, Admiral Robert Kowalski, and Margaret Hayes. They did not bow. They did not show deference. They simply nodded politely and sat down. Thalen had prepared a speech, but looking at their calm faces, she realized speeches would not work here. I came to ask humanity to return to the council, she said simply. We know, James replied. You have asked 17 times over the past 2 years. Our answer has not changed. This time is different. I am here personally. I am offering full membership. Equal votes. Equal representation. Everything you asked for 3 years ago. James leaned back in his chair. Speaker Thalen, may I ask you something? Why now? Why not 3 years ago when we first requested it? Thalen felt her pride warring with necessity. Finally, necessity won. Because we did not understand what you were providing. We thought you needed us. We did not realize we needed you. And now you do realize it, Margaret said. It was not a question. Yes. The galaxy is falling apart without humanity. The war, the famine, the economic collapse, the broken systems. We were blind to everything you did. We saw you as young and inexperienced. We did not see that you were holding everything together. President Wells spoke for the first time. Speaker Thalen, humanity did not leave to punish the council. We left because staying meant accepting disrespect. Accepting that our contributions did not matter. Accepting that 200 years of service meant nothing. I understand that now, Thalen said quietly. I am asking you to return. Please. Admiral Kowalski smiled slightly. You misunderstand our position, Speaker. We are not asking to return. We do not need the council anymore. We have built our own alliances. We have our own trade networks. We have partnerships with 6 other species who left after we did. We are thriving. Thalen felt fear for the first time in centuries. Then why did you agree to this meeting? James stood and walked to the window, looking out at the blue sky of Earth. Because humanity does not want the galaxy to fall apart. We do not want billions to suffer because of the council's pride. But we will not return to save you unless something fundamental changes. What change? Thalen asked desperately. James turned back to face her. The entire council system must be restructured. No more senior and junior members. No more species that have votes and species that do not. Every member must be truly equal, or humanity will not participate. That would mean dismantling traditions that have existed for thousands of years. Yes, Margaret said firmly. It would mean admitting that the old way was wrong. That age does not equal wisdom. That every species has value regardless of how long they have been in space. Thalen closed her eyes. She thought of Elder Vextha, who had finally admitted to her something shocking. His own species had once been treated exactly as the Kalish later treated humanity. When they finally gained power, they had continued the same cycle of disrespect toward newer species. For millennia, the pattern had repeated. The young were dismissed until they became old enough to dismiss others. If I agree to this, Thalen said slowly, there will be resistance. Vexter and others like him will fight it. Then you will have to fight them, James said. That is not our battle. Our battle was deciding to leave. Your battle is deciding what kind of council you want to have. One based on tradition and pride, or one based on actual equality. Thalen stood. I need time to present this to the council. To convince them. Take all the time you need, President Wells said. But understand this. Every day that passes, more species join our alliance. Every day, the old council becomes less relevant. Eventually, there will be nothing left to reform. The meeting ended. Thalen returned to her ship and began the journey back to council space. She spent the entire trip preparing her arguments, knowing she faced the hardest fight of her political career. 6 weeks later, the Galactic Council held its most contentious session in recorded history. Vexter and the old guard made passionate speeches about tradition and the proper order of things. Younger members, led by those who had worked alongside humans, argued just as passionately for change. The vote took 3 days. In the end, reform won by a narrow margin. The Council of True Equals was established, with every member species having equal representation regardless of age or history. The invitation went to humanity. This time, it was genuine. James Fletcher stood before the reformed council chambers 6 months later. The room looked the same, but everything else had changed. He was not asking for permission. He was accepting partnership. Humanity accepts membership in the Council of True Equals, he announced. We look forward to working with all member species to build something better than what existed before. Elder Vexter approached James after the ceremony. The old alien looked tired but somehow lighter, as if a great weight had lifted. Ambassador Fletcher, I owe you an apology. My species suffered under the same disrespect we showed you. Instead of breaking that cycle, we continued it. You had the courage to walk away. That courage saved us from our own pride. James shook the alien's crystalline hand carefully. The galaxy works best when we respect each other, Elder Vexter. Not because of how old we are or how powerful. Just because we are all here together, trying to survive among the stars. As James took humanity's seat at the council table as a true equal, he thought about how close they had come to disaster. The galaxy had nearly fallen apart because no one wanted to admit they were wrong. Sometimes, the strongest thing you could do was walk away. And sometimes, the bravest thing was to admit you needed help. The new council began its work, building a future based on mutual respect rather than ancient pride. It would not be easy, but it would be real. And that made all the difference.